Hello, how you doing? It's Phil Thatch, and another eclipse has come to my area of the United States. And once again, I have kind of had an eclipse fail. Back in 2017, the eclipse came right where I live. As a matter of fact, where I work had totality, but I went a little bit north of there so I could see totality for a little bit longer. Like, I can't remember how many minutes, but it seemed like it was a couple minutes longer just going 20 miles or so north. This time, totality didn't come to where I am. We had about 85% right here. And you could go, I live in East Tennessee, you could go to, I think my friend David Sailors went to someplace in Missouri, and I have another friend that went to Indiana and see 100%. And for some reason, I just didn't plan to do it. And I didn't really have a huge desire to do it until it was too late. So I did not go to see the totality, even though I absolutely loved it back in August. I think it was August of 2017. So it got to be, a couple of days before the eclipse, and I thought, gosh, I have to work that day, but maybe I could take a camera to work and take a 10 or 15 minute break and go make a picture of the eclipse at its maximum. So that's what I did. And I watched a video by Tony Northrup, and he was talking about how you need to use special filters that are specifically designed for eclipse photography and solar photography. You can't use just regular NDs, is what Tony said. And I didn't have, and it was too late to order a special solar filter. So the day before the eclipse, I went out and did a little bit of practicing. And I decided that because I wasn't 100% sure that the filters I was going to use would protect the sensor in my camera, I decided to use a camera that was my favorite camera back when I got it in 2016. But these days, it's kind of just one I pull out every once in a while. And so I used my old Nikon D500 that I've had since basically it first came out. I don't have ND filters for my lenses that use a 95 millimeter filter thread, which I have several. I've got the 800 f11, I've got the 200 to 800, those are Canon lenses. I've got the Sony 200 to 600, I've got the Nikon 180 to 600, I've got the Nikon 200 to 500. Well, every single one of those is a 95 millimeter filter thread, but I use 77 millimeter filters. So to use this old camera, the only lens that I had that was anywhere near long was my 70 to 200 f2.8 GVR2, and I used my 1.4 teleconverter, so that gave me 280 millimeters. But on this 1.5 crop body, that gave me 420 millimeters full frame equivalent, which really is not enough to take a picture of the sun and have it fill the frame, but I figured it'd be close enough to at least get a shot. What would have been better, and also has a 77 millimeter filter thread, is my Canon R7, which is 32.5 megapixels versus the D500's, I think, 20.9 megapixels. And it's a 1.6 crop instead of a 1.5. So this 500 millimeter lens on here would have given me 800 millimeters full frame equivalent and a lot more resolution. So this would have been a much better choice. But like I say, the R7 is still one of my main cameras, and I didn't want to risk its sensor with filters that aren't specifically designed for solar photography. So I used my case filters, which are not solar filters, or at least the ones that I have are not solar filters. When I looked at solar filters, it looked like most of them were around 16.5 stops. So I said, well, I'll just use my case 10 stop, and I'll stack my case 6-stop filter on top of it. So those two gave me 16 stops. And you know what? It worked perfectly. So I was at work. I was at work on this day, and I'll tell you how I did this picture. I went out to practice the day before, but it was cloudy, so I still wasn't sure if my filters were going to protect the camera. But I made a few shots, including this one. All these are through the clouds, but you can see sunspots on the sun, which I thought was kind of cool. And these are not edited or cropped. But anyway, I made a few shots, and I figured that I could use this gear the next day at work, and I hoped it wouldn't be cloudy. While I was out practicing, I also made a video clip, and I thought it looked cool just to see the clouds drifting past the sun, even with no eclipse going on at all. I thought this turned out pretty interesting. We have a warehouse building where I work, and when it came time for me to make my pictures, I just drove around there and got my camera out so people couldn't see me. I did have permission from the boss to do this, but I didn't want the rest of the employees to say, hey, why does Phil get to play with his camera while we're out here working? And so there's the camera, the 70-200 2.8 and the 1.4 teleconverter on the D500. And here you can see it's pointing up at the sky. I'm using the K&F Concept gimbal head, and there you can see the Case Revolution 10-stop and 6-stop filters on the camera as I pointed it towards the sky and made the photographs that I'm going to show you next in this video. I hope you enjoy them. Well, finally the time came, and as you can see, I made lots of shots. I didn't start when the eclipse started. I waited until it was almost to as much as it was going to be, and like I say, we had 85%, and I went out and made some shots, and most of mine were at 1600s. I think I shot only at f5.6, and I had both of those filters on, the 10-stop and the 6-stop neutral density for 16 stops total. And as you can see, 280 millimeters, that's the 200 millimeter lens with the teleconverter, gave me 280. And I made quite a few shots, just kind of getting ready. And then finally, way down here, I made quite a few shots. Here's my actual finished product right here. And as you can see, it is the sun with the moon behind it. But the funny thing about this image is it's cropped so much that if I do on this 4K monitor, if I do 100%, where right now it's set to fill, if I do 100%, it actually shrinks it. So there's 100% right there. So as you can see, let me hit info. It's only 1,526 pixels by 1,526 pixels, this square crop. So it's tiny. It's only about 2 megapixels when you do the math on that. So that's why I did not upload this to Vero, because Vero is really cool, because if you zoom in on a picture on Vero, you can see the detail of the high resolution. Well, this isn't high resolution. So I just sent this to Instagram, and I put this on my Phil Thatch Photography Facebook area. But no way was I going to put this super low resolution picture on Vero. So I do regret not using a higher resolution camera and not using a longer lens, but I am still pretty happy with the way this shot turned out, even though it's super low resolution. Turned out pretty neat, and I like the way it looks. So I have a lot of regrets. I wish that I had gone to see the totality instead of just going to work. I should have taken the day off, or maybe 2 days off even, and driven to Missouri or Indiana or someplace within, 6-7 hours drive, and seen the totality and actually ordered a proper filter, although these filters ended up working perfectly fine. So I don't know, maybe in July of 2028, maybe I'll go to Sydney, Australia. Maybe Heather and I will fly to Sydney, Australia. Maybe I'll even meet my YouTube friend, Adrian Alford, and do some eclipse photography down under. Who knows? But in the meantime, I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, give me a thumbs up and subscribe and hit the bell and all that good stuff. And as always, I hope to see you in my next video. Bye-bye.